Hi, good afternoon, everybody. The presentation I'm about to give is based on one I gave to my colleagues when I first returned to work. I'm an engineer, my colleagues are all engineers and scientists. We're interested in how things work, so there's a bit of a mechanical aspect to it. Since then, I've had to expand my presentation because things have moved on. But then I was told I only had 15 minutes, so I've had to squash it a bit as well. If anybody's interested, that is a sculpture of Percy the Peacock, who was a long-term resident at the Robert Jones and Agnes Hunt Orthopaedic Hospital in Oswestry. And if you look closely, it's made up of redundant orthopaedic instruments, lots of bone saws and things like that. But yeah, very impressive if you ever go there. Go and have a look. Oh, hang on. I don't want to scare you yet. Right. Yes, to start with, I was first had issues with my leg in about March, April 2018. I had a pain, it was intermittent, wouldn't go away, worse at night. So I went to the doctor, and over the period of the next 5 months, I saw the practice nurse, GP, who referred me to physiotherapy. I had 5 sessions of physiotherapy, developed a lump on my shin, then went back to my GP, sent me for an X-ray, then had an MRI scan, and then was told it's some sort of sarcoma. It's either chondrosarcoma or osteosarcoma. We can't tell unless you have a biopsy. And we've referred you to the RJAH in Oswestry. And sure enough, in less than a week, or the following day, I had a call saying, this was on a Thursday, can you come in on Monday for your biopsy? So having had the lump, it was 2 weeks from when I first saw the GP to actually going in for a biopsy. Now, I don't know if any of you have had a bone biopsy, but I had a CT-guided bone biopsy using what they call a Jamshidi needle, which is one of those. It doesn't show up very well on the picture, but the bottom it's like a serrated edge to it, and it's hollow, and they take a core out of your leg, sort of just drilling in and taking a sample. So they did that under anaesthetic because it would have been bloody painful otherwise. So the results of the biopsy. It's a chondrosarcoma. It's a tumour of the cartilage, no blood supply, therefore doesn't respond to chemotherapy. And provided the bone didn't break, I could have it removed and replaced with an implant. If it does break before, then they'll probably amputate at the knee. So I was given a pair of crutches saying, don't get off those. Now, the standard implant looks a bit like that. It's a Smiles implant, Stanmore Modular Individualized Lower Extremity System. Somebody thought long and hard about that, didn't they? So you've got this piece that goes into the tibia, and then a hinged knee that goes on top. And I've heard that referred to as a nail, because it looks sort of a bit like a nail, goes hammer it in. I was going to get a custom implant. Now, there it is in all its glory. The interesting part is this bit here. That space is to allow a bone block. What that does, it's a piece of the bone where the patella tendon attaches to the leg on what's called the tibial tuberosity. So what they do is they put that in, and then what that does, it allows you to straighten your leg properly. Often, they can only attach to some muscles rather than bone, and therefore you can only extend your knee to about there. Whereas having that allows you to extend your knee properly. So, installation. Right, that's actually the CT scan of my leg. You can see here is where the tumour was. The TP, I'm not sure what they call it in the medical industry, but from an engineering point of view, it's a tie-in point. That's where they're making the cuts to get the implant in. And as you can see, the implant comes in several pieces to allow it to be put in. So I've got them, what they do, they take out the bone block, drill it through to the right diameter, put that top section in, so the bone block's there, slot that into the middle section, screw it in place, and you'll be pleased to know they get their own hexagonal Allen key of just the right size to put it in with. So it's a bit like IKEA. Then they've got the bottom section, which slots into the bottom of the tibia, and then they bolt that into place as well. And then at the top, you've got a standard knee section where that shaft goes into the femur. Right. And that's what it looks like in situ. See here, go back in. That bit there is the bone block in place, sandwiched between the two bits of the leg. So, oncology. When they took the tumour out, they checked and did a full histology of the tumour. And the tumour itself was removed with good margins, but it's not only chondrosarcoma, it was dedifferentiated. So there's some osteosarcoma cells in there as well. So while chondro doesn't doesn't respond to chemotherapy, osteosarcoma does. So although the tumour was intact, there was no guarantee there weren't any stray circulating tumour cells in the system. So I had some precautionary chemotherapy following the MAP regime, the same that Kirsty had and anyone else who's had osteosarcoma will have had. If you're interested, I can tell you more, but it wasn't nice. I didn't have the same issues that Kirsty did. I didn't have neutropenic sepsis, but the way I describe it is it was like being run over by a herd of wild buffalo once every 4 weeks. It absolutely, I mean, I've played rugby, and I've had whole scrums go over the top of me. It was worse than that. So, some numbers. As I say, I'm an engineer. I'm actually a risk management consultant, so we're interested in numbers, small numbers. The incidence rate of chondrosarcoma is 2.9 per million. That's in 2018, there were 191 people diagnosed with chondrosarcoma. Dedifferentiated chondrosarcoma is about 10%. So that would be 19 people. I was one of 19 people in 2018. 2 times 10 to the -7. Numbers are getting smaller. Wet finger estimate. It's what we do as a risk management consultancy. If we don't know a number, we make one up. Let's assume it, I say, most are in the long bones, the tibia, the femur, the humerus, in the ribs. So say, at a guess, we don't have the proper numbers, 1 in 10 are in the tibia. So that makes it a sort of 2.9 times 10 to the -8, or maybe 2 people in the UK in 2018 were diagnosed with dedifferentiated chondrosarcoma. I say, always knew I was special. And in terms of the implant, I was only the 2nd person in the world to have that particular implant, the one with the bone block. So 2 in 6 billion, or 3 times 10 to the -10. That's been changed now because Steve over there is the third person to have the same implant. So it only goes down to 2 times 10 to the minus 10 rather than goes. Anyway, back to pictures. I had to have revision surgery. I found I had a broken leg, a broken tibia. You can just about see the callus there from the break. What that was due to was the bottom of the tibia collapsed due to the weakening due to chemotherapy. So it dropped down about 10 or 15 millimeters. That was enough to put pressure on the fibula, which broke the fibula. And there's another story behind that, which I won't go into. My wife is not impressed by me by that. So what they did was they put a replacement bottom section, slightly longer to take up for the space. They also chopped it off so they had good solid bone to go into, and they put this distal coated collar, coated with hydroxyapatite. And if you've seen sort of Super Vet, it's the sort of thing he puts on the any of the implants he puts into his patients. But that external collar, that external bit, which looks like the bit you have on your ballpoint pen when you put it in your pocket, that's to stop the implant twisting around on the bottom section. So there we go. So they took it out. I can describe how that went, but that's also one for the other day. And it was successful, completely successful. Story continues. April 2021, so virtually 12 months to the day after I'd had the operation, we had a grand day out for my daughter's birthday. Walked around Chester Zoo, mainly unaided. I used a walking stick occasionally, and we did about 5 miles. No problems whatsoever. Bit tired, but no problems with my leg. The following, probably 2 weeks later, went shopping. I didn't walk anywhere near as far and had a pain in my right leg. A pain in my knee which I hadn't felt before. So I went straight back to Oswestry, and the scan showed I had a tumour in the soft tissue around where the implant had been, where the original tumour had been in the bone. This was in the soft tissue around there. Biopsy confirmed it was D. diff again. So, there were no signs of lung metastases on the scan at this point. So the decision was to go for aggressive treatment. So I had my leg amputated above the knee. It had to be high enough to get so it'd get around where they had put the knee in, and that meant I get a prosthetic leg. That was the implant. It was rescued and dissected from my leg by my surgeon, who cleaned it up. On the left, you've got the knee part itself. On the right is the tibial implant. The knee sort of slots into the top of the tibia, and this bit around the bottom of the tibia is where the bone had grown into the implant. So it was successful. It was working really well. Mechanically, no problem. This is something that always tickles me. If you look down here, I don't know if you can read it, it says ant, as in anterior, front. If you look up this end, it says prox, ant, proximal, front. So top, front, this way up. So, on to physio. I started on physio once the initial swelling had gone down on my stump, and that is what they call a PAM aid. while they're waiting for things to go on. So a bit of exercise. It's basically a metal cage with a balloon inside. You put the balloon over the stump, put the stump inside the metal cage, pump it up, and that holds onto your leg. And it's to get you used to walking. It looks a bit like some sort of device of medieval torture, but it gets you going. Eventually, I got my first prosthetic. November last year, meet Lenny the leg. This is a bit better view of the leg. At the top of the leg, you've got what's called the socket. And initially, because the stump, or residuum, as my prosthesis insists on calling it, will change shape. As you get rid of the post-operative swelling and build up the muscle again, it starts changing shape. So you start off with this big bucket, basically, which comes up the side of your hip, and it's held in place by an elasticated belt. Not the most fashionable accessory. The knee itself is a mechanical knee. It's set to be a free knee, so free swinging knee. So it's fine as long as you lock it out before you take your step. If you don't lock it out, it'll collapse under you directly. But it's good to get you going. May, like this year, I meet Otto. I call it Otto because it's made by Otto Bock. As you see, it's a much sleeker thing altogether. It's at the top, it's a direct fit socket, and it's got a C leg, or a microprocessor knee. I call it Trigger's broom because between Lenny the leg and Otto, I've been through 3 different types of socket, 3 different knees, 2 different feet. But it's still my leg. So, microprocessor knee. It's quite sophisticated. There's position sensors in there which tells the leg what movement it's doing, what position it's in. It has an anti-stumble feature, so if it thinks you're doing something unnatural, or a movement that you shouldn't be doing, it'll, rather than collapsing completely like the mechanical knee, it locks up, or rather tightens up the hydraulic system, so it starts collapsing slowly rather than quickly. Gives you time to recover. Other things it does. It has a feature when it knows you're sitting down, so it can give you a bit more support as you sit down. And also same when you're standing up. One of the cleverest features is what are called the modes. My mode, they call it in here. There's several modes. At the moment, well, I've only just had the cycling mode released for me. I'll show you what difference that makes. As you can see, this is the normal mode of the leg up, and it slowly bends. If you give me a few seconds. No. Some software will just let you down when you need it. Check it again. I'm now in cycling mode. Those are the only 2 modes I've got at the moment. They also do a golf mode. I don't play golf. I might have to take it up. A skating.
Can I just say, your wife's about to have a coronary.
Yeah. There's a skating mode, there's a skiing mode, there's a table tennis mode, and I haven't managed to find a complete, definitive set of modes, but they keep sort of adding ones to, depending if they've got someone who asks if they can do this, and say, well, what do we need to make it do to allow you to do that? And some clever clogs at Otto Bock will come up with tweak the software and say, there you go. But that's all at the moment, cycling and basic, that's all I've got. Anything else? Is that it? Yes, that's it. So these are my thank yous to Robert Jones and Agnes Hunt for dealing with my implant, the Royal Orthopaedic Hospital who did my amputation because of, they couldn't do it at Oxford Street because of the pandemic issues, the Christie who look after my chemotherapy, University College Hospital London. I've been on a drug trial there, clinical trial there. The Specialist Mobility Rehabilitation Centre up in Preston. They've been doing my physiotherapy and my leg for me. And of course the BCRT who have supported us throughout. Thank you.